In lesson 2.1, you are going to be able to solve one-step equations with one variable by using addition or subtraction. The good news is this lesson should be a review for you. Okay, so what is a solution of an equation? A solution of an equation is a value of the variable that makes the equation true. So it's a value or a number that you could put in for that letter that would make the equation, one side equal to the other, a true statement. And remember, when we're solving one-step equations, you always use inverse operations. So the inverse operation of addition would be subtraction, because subtraction is the operation that will undo addition. And the inverse operation of subtraction is addition. Think about it, if you owed your mom $5, that would be like taking away $5 from your money. To get back to the same amount of money that you originally had, you would have to add $5 more. You'd have to earn $5 more to get back up to what you started with, all right? Remember that subtraction, though, is also the same as adding the opposite, so don't forget your rules with your negative numbers. All right, so let's start with these three equations. It does not matter which side of the equation your variable is on. Always look for the variable first. It may help you to highlight the variable. So here I can see n is on the left side. What is happening to n? Well, I see that I am subtracting 3.2 from n, or I am taking away 3 2/10 from n. The opposite of that subtraction sign would be adding, and I would add that 3 2/10, so 3.2 to both sides in order to get n by itself. These would cancel each other out, and you would be left with only an n on the left-hand side. You are always trying to isolate the variable. Then we would add these two numbers over here. 6 and 2 is 8, 5 and 3 is 8, and you drop the decimal down. Whenever you are adding or subtracting decimals, remember to line the decimal point up. You should absolutely be able to do this without a calculator. And we get n is 8 8/10, or 8.8. Always check your answer. So you should never miss any of these problems, because all you have to do is plug in your answer and see if it works. See if the equation comes out to be true. If I put 8.8 in where I had n, 8.8 minus 3.2, I am checking. I am actually making sure that this does equal 5.6. So on this side, if I do 8.8 minus 3.2, it might be easier to line them up if you need to. And we can see that this would give me a 6, this would give me a 5, and we would drop the decimal down. You may need to review adding and subtracting decimals if you're having a hard time with that. Your end statement is 5.6 equals 5.6. That is a true statement, right? Those do equal each other. Then 8.8 is our solution because it's a value of the variable that makes the equation true. Perfect. Next problem. You can look for your variable, and again, you may want to highlight it. You may not need to do this, but I'm going to just start us off with the basics. So there's k. I look to see what is happening to my k. Well, I can clearly see that I am taking away 6 from k. That's right here, right? So the opposite of taking away 6 would be adding 6. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides of my equation. These cancel out on the right this time. It doesn't matter that k is on the right. All that matters is that you isolate k. So by adding 6, I have got my k by itself, right? Then negative 6, or remember, negative is the same as minus. So this is a negative 6, and this is a positive 6. Those would get me 0. 0 is a number too. It is allowed to be a solution to your equation, so don't be afraid of that. Let's do our check step. If I keep my first line, negative 6 equals, but instead of writing k, I write 0, and I take away 6, I'm checking to see, is this true? 0 take away 6 would give me a negative 6. So negative 6 does equal negative 6. I have a true equation, a true statement. All right, perfect. Let's look at number 3. Again, highlighting my variable, I can see that my variable is on the right again. What is happening to m? Look with m. Well, I can see that I am taking away a 9 after the m. So I would want to add 9 to both sides of the equation. Remember that you should only be doing, whatever you decide to do, you should do once on each side of the equal sign. So always look for that equal sign. Great, so we're adding 9 to both sides. 16 plus 9 gives me 25. I'm dropping the equal sign down, just keeping it right where it was. I still have the m, and the minus 9 and the plus 9 cancel each other out. So I have m equals 25, or 25 equals m. You don't have to flip it around. It's okay that the variable is on the right side. Let's just check it real quick. 16 equals, I'm going to put 25 in, and I'm going to take away 9, and I'm checking to see if this is true. Do not just write down the check step and just write, okay, great, 16 equals 16. You need to actually be checking it. So think about it. 25, if I take away 9, you can break that up into like a 5 and a 4, so I would get down to 16, okay? So 16 does equal 16, all right? Again, you should always be checking your answers on these. There's never a reason to miss any one of them because you're going to know if you're right or wrong, and the check step is really important, so please make sure you do it. But let's look at these next 3. What is happening to D? D is, I am adding 1/2 to D, so how do I undo that? The opposite of adding 1/2 would be taking away 1/2. Again, you should be able to do these basic math skills without a calculator. You may want to brush up on your fraction and decimal rules if you're having a hard time with this. By taking away 1/2, I cancel these out and I'm left with D equals 1 minus 1/2 is a 1/2. Keep your variable and your equal sign lined up. Keep your work neat. Quick check step, 1/2 plus 1/2 does in fact equal 1. That one's easy, done. Looking at number 5, identify your variable. We have k. What is happening to k? On that side of the equal sign, I can see that I am adding 5 with the k. The opposite would be to take away 5. You remember taking away, guys, is the same as, it's subtraction, right? But it's the same as adding the opposite, okay? So depending on the situation, it might be easier to think of something as a -5, and it might be easier in other situations to think of something as a -5. So let's look right here on this side. Those two. I would consider this like a -5 minus 5, okay? But that's kind of confusing to me, so I'm just going to instead read it as, look, this is like a subtracting 5, and I'm subtracting 5 again. Just think about that logically. If you're taking away 5, and you're taking away 5, you've really taken away 10, okay? Whether you see that as a -10 or a -10, those are really the same thing. So here I end up with k equals -10. Let's check that. Plugging in -10 for k. Let's think about this. -10. -10 plus 5. -10 plus 5. I would be adding 5 to a negative, so I would still have more negatives. I'd end up with a -5. And -5 does equal -5. All right, so looking at t. Here, this one's a little tricky because I have something in front of t this time. You need to remember that the sign always goes, like the term sign is always in front of it, okay? So this plus sign, I'm gonna write this again just to have it a little more spaced out. This plus sign actually belongs to the t. That's a positive t or a plus t, okay? So this one goes with that. So if you're trying to figure out what kind of 6 we have, you need to kind of put a sign in front of that, okay? If you don't see a sign, it's a positive 6. So I'm just going to put a little plus sign there. All right, I strongly recommend that you add a sign in front of that because it's not that you are canceling this sign, you are canceling this one, all right? So when you're deciding what to do to get t by itself, I see a positive 6 now, So I would want to take away 6, or I see a plus 6, so I would want to take away 6. But it's not this plus sign. This one belongs to that t, all right? So taking away 6 and taking away 6 once on each side, these are what cancel each other out. You're left with that positive t, so you could write down a plus t for now. And 14 minus 6 is 8. Now we can see that really this is isolated, right? We don't need that plus sign anymore, so we just have t equals 8, and we can do our check step. 6 plus 8, does that equal 14? Yes, it does. Please make sure you're checking it. So pause the video, try 7, 8, and 9 on your own, and then press play to go over them. All right, so hopefully you've tried 7, 8, and 9 on your own. Here's my work and my answers. Please check over them. For 7, I added 2.3 to both sides, and I got 9.3. For 8, I would add 3/4 because, again, you have to look at the fact that, you have to look at the fact that this minus sign is what goes with the 3/4. The plus sign belongs with the z, okay? So the opposite of subtracting 3/4 is adding 3/4. You would have that plus sign right here, but really we don't need that anymore. It's just a positive z, right? Plus is the same as positive, subtraction is the same as negative. And then looking at 9, again, this plus sign belongs with that x, so you have to look at the fact that it's a minus 11 or a negative 11. Whichever one's easier to think about here. I think it's easier to think about this as a minus 11. So the opposite of that would be adding 11. Make sure you remember that the sign in front of the term belongs to that term. All right, one more problem here. Over 20 years, the population of a town decreased by 275 people to a population of 850. Write and solve an equation to find the original population. I always look at the last sentence so I can define my variable. I want to write an equation to find the original population. So I'm going to say P stands for the original population. Let's think about what happened here. We had a population, right? That's what started out. So I'm going to start with P. And over 20 years, the population decreased by 275 people. So I'm taking away 275 from what I started with to a population of 850. So that's like saying it ended up at or is equal to 850. There's your equation. Now what would you do to get P by itself? You would add 275 to both sides. Canceling these out here, we would be left with P equals 5, 12, carry the 1, and 11. So I would say 1,125 people. For word problem, please make sure that you define your variable, make sure you write your equation, and make sure at the end you put a label on your answer. Okay, define your variable, write your equation, label your answer. Yes, you can absolutely still check this. There's no reason to miss any of these problems because you can always plug your answer back in. So try this if we just did this on the side, lining up our numbers. Doing your subtraction, we can see that we do get 850. So 850 does equal 850. I hope this video helps.